Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this latest teaching session on the course on technology and the future of medicine. Today we have a real first in the course and a very exciting moment. Jonathan White, his lectures throughout the past 4 years have been the real high points of the course, and now we're going to do a flipped classroom session. And I think it sort of means you can ask him anything and he can merge there with you. He doesn't have to stay up here, so I'll leave things to him.
Okay. Thank you very much, Clem. Has anybody done a flipped classroom session before? Nobody. We had somebody on Skype, right? I think maybe. So I'm Jonathan White, Department of Surgery, 3M National Teaching Fellow, all that good stuff. And I've talked here a few times before about the singularity and technology in the body, and I gave a TEDx talk as well last year. And Kim keeps asking me to come back, and I keep on saying no, because I've kind of said everything I had to say, right? My point of view is not changing that much. And then he enticed me back by asking me to do a flipped classroom session. So I guess sometimes there's a bit of misunderstanding about what a flipped classroom actually is. And you see people like, taking a picture of a classroom and turning it on its head. I've actually had some senior people recently saying that they're going to take a computer lab or something and tear it down and put a flipped classroom in there. Like, you've got to build a flipped classroom, it's got to be a special space. And that's really a misunderstanding of the whole thing. The idea is the thing that's flipping is the teaching. It's not the guy standing at the front with the set of slides talking all the time and you guys just sitting receiving. We're actually flipping it around and saying, well, you guys are going to do most of the talking and I'm going to facilitate it and I'm going to kind of help you along if I can. But it shouldn't be just me talking all the time. So I'm going to be ending up there in a minute or two. And that's really what it is to flip. Certainly, when I teach surgery, what I do, the night before the session with the medical students, I send them a bunch of cases. Like, I send them questions. Here's a patient with a problem. What would you do about it? What do you think is happening? And then in the session itself, we actually get them to stand up and present their case and tell us what they would do. So really, that's what this is based on. So the other thing that's important, I think, is to make sure we know who's who in the room and why you came here, like why you enrolled for this class and why you got out of bed this morning and came to this particular session. Because there's other things. You could have been Starbucks drinking a nice coffee now, right? You could be studying or something now, but you came here instead. So I'm Jonathan White, and I showed up because I want to play with teaching in the flipped classroom.
My name is Salam Bayana. I networked with Dr. Solas at a conference a couple of weeks back, and I was really interested in the topic of discussion, so I thought I'd volunteer. I'm a biology student and a research assistant here.
All right. Okay, biology. All right.
Hi, my name's Kira.
Yes.
I'm a fourth-year biosci student. I feel like I've talked about why I've taken this class many times, so why I came today was I actually really liked your TED Talk. So
right.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I'm really excited. I've never done a flipped classroom, so I'm excited to see what that's about.
Because if you want to pass the mic over, that's great. I'm sort of hoping that you've formed a point of view on the singularity, right? You should be at this point, if you've been to a bunch of these lectures, you should have formed a point of view as to whether it's a reasonable thing or a load of crap, or somewhere in the middle.
My name is Rahel, and I'm an undergraduate neuroscience student, and I came here today because I thought the TED Talk was really fascinating, and just the title, Flipped Classroom, was really interesting, so I wanted to see what that would look like.
And I should comment as well, because often, in fact, you and I are both in General Faculties Council, right, and we're often in the classroom one floor up from here. Yes. And it's interesting coming north of 87th Avenue and hearing how people teach on this side of the line compared to how we teach in Faculty of Medicine. Because I think your classes are way larger than our classes. You've got like 200 or 400 students in a room, right? I'm only teaching kind of 20 people, so it's easy to flip when you've got a small group. It's harder to flip when you've got 400 people.
My name is Michael. I'm a grad student studying transplant immunology, and I came here because, well, to be honest, it would look weird if I didn't.
Okay, fair enough.
My name is Francesco, and I'm a PhD student in physics. And I came here today because I was curious about the flipped classroom. I never seen something like this before. I'm just used to the normal classroom where there is someone that is teaching with the slides.
Yeah, okay. Which is by far the most common experience around here, right?
My name is Ian. I'm a PhD student in Department of Surgery at the TCU Engineering Works. And why I came here, because I'm never exposed to, this kind of topics, something I feel it may be interesting, quite interesting.
So we're in the same department.
Yeah.
And we haven't met. So that's a win for today.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So we're the same. I'm also in the surgery department. I'm a PhD student of being John. Yeah, I have taken your surgical education
well,
rounds
we have met.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
I'm very interested in this topic of future of medicine. The class name it did attract me, so I come here and I see there is your lectures. I'm very interested, and I also look at the TED talk of your.
Okay. And I'll talk about the TED talk in a minute.
Hi, I'm Ankur. I'm a third-year student in the neuroscience, and I guess I came today because I enjoyed the TED talk that you gave, and learning a little bit about you. You're a very successful individual, and you do a wide variety of things. So it's worth it to hear, your lecture, and it's an interesting experience.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Shri. I'm not really in this class, but one day I kind of just walked in and I saw some interesting stuff, so I thought I might as well sit down and listen.
And that's a good thing about this course, because there's lots of people talking about things you wouldn't think they would talk about, right?
Yeah, and I just thought it was interesting, so I kind of just sat in the back and kind of listened. So I occasionally come in and I kind of listen to everything, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And I kind of just walk out to my next class. So yeah, I'm in Geo. I'm in my second year.
Okay.
So it's nice. Yeah.
And can we ask the people at the back as well?
Yeah. So the three of you in the back, are you really here, or you just accidentally ended up in the room? Yeah. Well, okay, so you get to talk too. We'll try some long-range shots with the video here.
You're very welcome.
So my name is Ashley. I'm actually a fourth-year student. I'm in genetics. And yeah, I usually study here during my spare, and I like it.
Okay.
I'm Arthur. I'm a fourth-year astrophysics major, and I love the topics here. They're great.
Because I want to ask you about Mercury and Venus and Mars a little bit. But we'll get to that later on.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Elvin. I'm a first-year student in engineering, and I'm studying for my midterm right now. I just happen to be here.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try not to make too much noise.
So his life has been changed by accidentally ending up in this room. All right.
Well, Kim, you have the microphone. Why did you come today? Why do you keep on doing this course? You just won't give up.
Well, the course is becoming more and more rewarding, actually. Everything seems to be getting better, including the students. This is the first group of students that spontaneously has questions during the lectures. That never happened before. You have them sitting there. We'd reach the end of the lecture, and I also almost needed a cattle prod to get them to ask questions, whereas these guys are full of questions even during the lecture, and they seem really excited and sort of keyed in. So, possibly they're the best students we've ever had. We don't really know that yet, but it's possible. Yeah, so that makes it exciting. The new things that we're doing make it exciting. Actually, Dr. White and I have had a lot of debate about the importance or lack thereof of Future Day, or whether Future Day is even reasonable. But the city bought Future Day. So the city is doing special lighting on the high-level bridge this coming Sunday. And so in a sense, the whole city is celebrating Future Day, but they don't really know it. Why is the bridge green and orange?
It'll be on the website, right?
Yes.
Because the website tells you what the color is, right?
Yes.
So that's a big win, actually.
Yeah. So that's more publicity than Future Day has ever had in any city in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, it isn't much, but it's more than anyone else. So I'm really proud of that. And we have a really fun series of musical and food and student presentations. And we have a guy talking about the bioartificial kidney silicon-based filter, little tiny filter, low resistance. The pressure of the blood itself can make it go, so you don't need a pump or anything. Really exciting tech. And then I've given so many optimistic presentations about the future that I felt we needed, just to be fair, to have one that's doomsday apocalypse. So that's what I'm giving toward, the end of the day on Future Day.
If this is the robots take over or the grey goo hypothesis?
Either one, yeah. No, I realize that that's enough, not me, that I have to explain also that it's really not the audience either. Audiences really don't want a completely negative message, that they like any presentation better if it's positive. And so I am going to have some positive portions of this, apocalyptic talk late on Sunday night. And then I'm doing that talk again for Global Health Rounds on Monday for anybody who missed it on Sunday. So yeah, the cooperation with Budapest, that's the only other place in the world where they have a course sort of like this one, seems quite tangible. On the other hand, nothing's happened yet, right? We have one student here who said he wanted to collaborate on a specific subject there, so it's all very straightforward what's been offered, and we're waiting, right? We're waiting. Yeah. But I think every term something new happens. A course about the future can't be static. So this flipped classroom session today is something that we've never really done anything like it. If you look at the David Pierce talks, they're really good, but they're entirely different because he isn't here. So the students come up front and they look him in the eye on Skype, and they, it's just a sort of back and forth the whole period between them and him, and it works really well, and he loves it. But most people out there, I think the idea of such intimacy with students just reduces their own self-image or something. They could never do that,
Well, I suppose if I had to summarize the flipped classroom thing, it's not about delivery of knowledge, it's about application of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to say, hey, here's 45 slides and me talking through them. It's, hey, you guys have got a point of view already, can you apply it to some actual problems? And then see what happens after that. Who else is here? Why are you here? We didn't hear from you guys.
Yeah, she's capable of telling you. Okay.
So I've been working with Dr. Soles for the past 2-3 years now, and I help him with the videography of this class. Yeah, and I think I've listened to your lectures before, and they sounded very interesting. And I didn't know what a flipped classroom was.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And last but not least, I think that's everybody.
Yes, and this is Paul.
I'm just an interested technician recording these events so that they can be subsequently be posted on YouTube. So
I agree with everything you said except the just part. You're not just anything.
Okay, right? Thank you.
So I guess let me get started. I do have a few slides to get us kind of started off. I'll move so I can see. So by now you should be familiar with this definition. This is from the Guardian newspaper, right? The singularity being the moment when technological change becomes so rapid and profound it represents a rupture in the fabric of human history, right? And you'll have seen the cover of Time magazine in 2045 with a guy getting a thing plugged into the back of his head and everything, right? I've actually been down to Singularity University. I went to FutureMed there, not last year, but the year before. If you look at me, I'm somewhere, I think that's me way back there. So I spent a week at NASA Ames in Mountain View in California, and kind of surrounded by people who were drinking the Singularity Kool-Aid, essentially, and came away with a particular point of view. I was asked, I think it was Ashlyn Bernier last year asked me to give this TED talk. So I talked at TEDx Edmonton. And I've been surprised by the reaction to it. I looked, just preparing for this talk, I looked on YouTube a couple of nights ago, like 12,500 views, which is nothing compared to like Gangnam Style. But still, it's quite a bit for some dude talking about something kind of weird like the Singularity. And I think the next nearest TEDx talk from that day in Edmonton was like 7,000 or 8,000. So for some reason, my topic seems to be the one that's been viewed the most times. I don't know. I kind of have a policy of not really looking at the comments on YouTube. But I've got more of these than I do of that on that video. I've kind of changed my perspective on the Singularity over the time I've been involved in this course. I do have more questions than answers. And if the TED Talk is me talking about the positive aspect of the Singularity, my questions are things like, technology will fix everything, right? We can just give our problems to technology and it'll fix it. But over here in the real world, politics and practicality still rule. I am wearing a pink tie today because I wore a pink tie yesterday because yesterday was Pink Shirt Day, right? Anti-bullying. So technology is not fixing that. In fact, you could argue technology is actually enabling bullying because of things like cyberbullying, essentially. So technology is not helping us there, it's actually hurting us there in some way. You see this kind of slide all the time about exponentials on the logarithmic scale. And when you talk to people in some parts of California, they say, well, don't worry, because in a couple of years, you'll have a computer that's going 4 times as fast for a quarter of the cost. The exponential thing will fix all the details, essentially. But really, the future doesn't build itself. Like, we have to build the future. There's engineers and biologists and people in the room who are going to be actually engaging with the world and inventing things and changing things. It doesn't happen by itself. You have to kind of get on with it and do it. Big data. You hear about big data all the time, right? Big data is a solution to everything. Let's get a lot of data, and it's very complicated. We'll get a computer to sort it all out, and then we'll be able to see patterns in the data that will tell us what the world is really like. But really, information overwhelms us and separates us, and anybody who's got a PlayStation 3 and 4 different games they haven't got around to playing yet, or a stack of books on their bedside table, or on my list on Netflix, stuff you're never going to get around to watching. We've got too much information. We have to go on a kind of an information diet, I think. Number 4 is, well, we will do all these amazing things. We'll go to Mars, right? We'll build a permanent human habitation on the moon. We'll do all these fantastic things. But we're not actually changing at the heart of this. We're not getting exponentially wiser or kinder. We keep on doing lots of stupid things. We're not really changing as a species, essentially. The Singularity people will say, well, we're all about fixing hunger and poverty and war and about getting fleets of drones in the center of Africa to deliver medicine and water. But when you look at what's actually happening, a lot of the projects are based on fixing life in California first, like making people who are uber wealthy and uber healthy a bit more wealthy and a bit more healthy as well. I have some problems with that. You know, you hear people saying, well, I'm doing this to advance the world and to make things better, but they have a product to sell. Please buy my new video, my new book, my new gadget, because they've got to make money out of this. A rising tide lifts all boats, that's number 7. Because if we make the world better through the Singularity and through technology, everybody will get better, right? But in fact, lots of people aren't going to get better and lots of people are going to be left behind. In fact, some people will be voluntarily left behind. If you look at what's happening in the Middle East with ISIS at the moment, they actually want to be left behind in the 7th century and kind of go back to the way it was when Muhammad was still alive, which is very different from what we're talking about celebrating Future Day. They'd be opposed to Future Day, opposed to the idea of progress, in fact. We just need to change a few little things around the edges and then the world will somehow be better. Like your brain, your DNA, your thoughts, and the very essence of your being. We're talking about technology at some point being able to enable really very major change and changing things like yourself, essentially, which is a big deal. And then, I mean, I guess my criticism of the Future Day is you might as well have a celebration for the sun coming up, because it comes up every day anyway. The future's coming, whether we celebrate it or not. I can't wait for the future. Are we there yet? These may be the good old days if we don't develop things responsibly as we go forwards. Here's Martin Luther King in the 60s. He says our scientific powers outrun our spiritual power. We have guided missiles and misguided men. So even back then he's talking about technology kind of getting away from us a little bit. Here is an article from Time recently, December 2nd, 2014. And they list 5 very smart people who think AI could bring on the apocalypse, talking about Kim's idea if there's an apocalypse coming. Stephen Hawking's one of them, Elon Musk is one as well. And these are serious people. These are not like kind of people you've never heard of or people who've never achieved anything. These are people who've won Nobel Prizes and are doing projects to get us into space, who are saying AI is potentially going to be a big problem. And if we don't get out ahead of it and try and figure out what's going to happen, then that could be a big issue for us. I've shown this slide before. I mean, what I would most like to see, I suppose, is that we would fix the problems that we can make the most difference with right now, using stuff we already have, and don't wait for the future to come and deliver things, because they might never come. Focus on fixing things where you are. It's very hard to countenance going to, I don't know, Nepal or Bali or impoverished countries around the world to try and help people through international outreach when you haven't gone to Boyle Macaulay or the Bissell Centre or places actually in Edmonton where people need your help right now. So what about local community? What about building those things up here? If we could just understand ourselves a little bit better, perhaps, if we had a little bit more of an insight into psychology and sociology, maybe we could stop doing a lot of the stupid things that we do. And really, my strategy for the future is trying to hang on by your fingernails as best as possible and do your best knowing that things are going to be very disruptive. I'm 46 now, right? So I'm maybe, 20 years-ish ahead of you guys. Like, I'm going to be dead probably in 40 years. Yes! Which means all this stuff won't be my problem. It'll be your problem, because you're going to still be around at that point. And probably you and your kids and your grandchildren are going to have to deal with whatever the complication of the newest technology is going to be. So I've got about 40 years to kind of work my way through this, and then I'm gone to somewhere better, hopefully. So that's pretty much all I've got to say in terms of content delivery, and really it's just to get you kind of warmed up, to get you started to think. I wanted to give you some scenarios, and we got maybe about half an hour to work through these. We could talk about these, we can talk about whatever else you want, really. Before we come to the first scenario, actually, can I kind of poll the group? What's your opinion of the singularity? What do you think? Do you think we're all going to be robots in 2045?
Honestly, I was interested in the topic, but I was just exposed to singularity through Dr. Solas' presentation in a conference that I attended. So I just saw its reality aspect of it. It really changed my perspective on the world.
So you think it might actually happen?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
that's probably why I'm here.
You're a yes. What do you like? Are you a yes? Do you think it's going to happen? And if it does, it will be a good thing, or?
I don't know if I'm a yes yet. I think that, I definitely agree that we're on the track. I don't know. I feel like 2045 is too soon. And right now I'm maybe a little bit of a cynic. I'm not sure it's going to be the best thing. Partly just because, and I'm sure we'll get to this in the conversation, but I'm all for the human experience, and I feel like that the singularity may come at a cost to that.
All right. So yes, but not sure.
I think there's definitely a possibility of it happening for sure, and I agree with Kira that 2045 might seem like it's too soon. Although we talked about how technology is evolving in astronomical rates, but it just still feels like 30 years from now is too soon. And definitely I think I'm not very excited for the singularity. I'm more fearful in a way because the world as I've known it will be changing, and definitely a change could be good, but I just don't know what this change would bring. So I'm a bit fearful. So hopefully by the end of this course I will be more prepared for it.
So you're looking 30 years down. Go ahead. You're looking 30 years down the road, right? 2045. So 30 years ago, Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as President of the United States, right? I was about, I would have been 12 or something, I think, at that point, right? Like nobody else. I mean, Kim probably might have been born as well. But most people in this room weren't born in 1980, right? I'm guessing. So there's been a lot of change. We're talking about exponential change. We're talking about there being more change in the next 30 years than there was in the last 30 years. So you kind of look at where we were then compared to where we are now. We're likely to have gone further if the hypothesis is correct, right? So, yes or no, and what do you think?
I think it sounds reasonable that we'd get that exponential growth, and I think that the period leading up to that point, or maybe at least part of it, will be very interesting, very exciting, potentially positive for part of the world anyway. But I think once we hit that point, the singularity, I think there's going to be a lot of existential crises, and I have overall a negative bias towards it and a slightly apocalyptic view of the entire situation. So I'm not really looking forward to it because I don't think I will be able to deal with that sort of change. And I don't think humans are really biologically equipped to deal with that level of change, even if machines are.
Okay, so far we're hearing yes, but a lot of concerns.
Oh yeah, I think that singularity is going to happen. And I think soon, 2045 for me is a reasonable date because, as you say, the technology is increasing exponentially. So we have more technological development in the last 5 years probably than all the last 30 years. So I think is data, and I'm kind of scared because, as my colleagues say, that I don't know if the humanity is really prepared for that. How we can, because it will be a big change, I think, for the humanity. Of course it will be. So I don't know. I'm kind of scared about that. I hope the humanity will be well prepared.
Okay.
Okay. For me, I never know about singularity before this course. After several classes, I think singularity will be coming. Really. But I'm not really fear about singularity. And actually, I'm looking forward to it. And I think it will, it will solve many problems and lots of convenience for humans. Something. Okay.
Okay. Yes or no? What do you think?
I think it could happen.
You're possible. You're maybe.
A higher possibility.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it can happen. And I hope it can benefit us more than we fear it. Just like Stephen Hawking, he himself is using the super intelligent machine to help himself. And currently we have so many intelligent machines to help, to assist our work. So I think it will benefit us more.
So you're actually criticizing Hawking a bit there. You're saying, well, okay, you're criticizing artificial intelligence, but you're using it yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
I think the singularity is pretty likely to happen if we just consider, in the 80s, the idea of an internet where people could all around the world could send messages to each other that included, entire videos and entire talks. It was ridiculous, but now we do that fairly easily, compress it and send it. So I think the singularity will happen. I think it'll be divisive, though. I think it'll divide humans even more into more social gaps, where the wealthy will be the ones who get it first, and they'll use it to further supplement their power or their ability. Already nowadays we have people who are very wealthy are kind of at the top, and they're at a bubble where they don't really see the average person struggling to get by. And I think the idea of a singularity will further reinforce that because it'll permeate all aspects of society.
Yeah,
so I think it'll be a problem there.
And it's people who tend to be, I think if you're privileged, the first thing is to recognize that you're privileged. So I kind of won the lottery, right? Because I was born in a Western country, not in the middle of Africa somewhere. And I was white, yes. And I am male, yes. That's like win, win, win. That's like the 3 cherries on the slot machine, essentially, at this point in human history, right? So I'm in a privileged class, white, male in the West. And you're right, it's those kind of people who tend to be driving technological change. So when it comes, if it comes, it's going to go to those people first and make the wealthy wealthier and make those who live until they're 80 or 90 live even longer, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really what it's going to boil down to. Like, even if you look at companies nowadays, like we say we've mostly eliminated racism, but if you look at companies, executives, which are the top positions, they're all white men. There's the token, minority or the token female, but really the vast majority is still white men, which is the case it was 50 years ago and the case it was 100 years ago. So I think as the singularity comes and permeates all of society, it'll be more white men who benefit the vast majority of it.
Which is why it's interesting. It's going to be your guys' problem to sort that thing out, right? To engage minorities and to engage people who aren't in the West and to engage women more than men, right? So yes or no, and what do you think?
Sorry. Yes. Well, maybe.
Maybe.
I'm saying yes, kind of, because you know how the Oculus kind of came out of nowhere?
Yeah.
And it kind of, I don't know, we always wanted to go into the game, but it made it more possible to go into the game, right? And it just seemed like it came out of nowhere. So I guess 30 years is a good amount of time because of that. And no, because I really don't want it to, get there that fast, because I'm not going to be ready for that. So that's why I'm saying no.
And there are people, I mean, if we're positing 2045 as the year, the most interesting people probably who'll be challenged with that would be somebody who's 20 years old at that point. So somebody who hasn't been born yet and won't be born for the next 10 years, born 2025, and Singularity hits at 2045. What does a 20-year-old do with this? Because I know I wasn't very smart when I was 20. I was making kind of pretty rash decisions. So now you're going to be asked to make a decision about what you do with technology in your body and your brain.
Yeah, well, I guess, I don't know how I would answer that, because I'm not exactly sure what kind of technology they would have, and right, or what they'll be able to do with it. Because, I don't know, because I can't think of any technology that they could possibly have. Like, I don't know what they'll do with it, really, at all.
So, Singularity, yes or no, and what do you think?
I think it's very possible. However, we do have to change as a species, like in every aspect of our lives, in our social aspects, in the way we deal with day-to-day situations. We have to think as a group instead of just individually furthering our own goals. We have to kind of combine into this collective being almost and achieve the singularity. So I think it's very possible if we don't blow ourselves up first.
We are born. Resistance is futile, right?
Yeah.
The hive mind. Talking about becoming one bigger thing. I mean, Kurzweil talks about saturating the local space-time continuum with consciousness.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know what he is getting at there.
I don't know either.
In fact, has anybody seen a movie recently called Particle Fever? About the Large Hadron Collider at CERN. And it's an interesting story actually, because there are theoretical physicists and there are kind of engineering physicists. And the engineers just like making big, huge machines, right? Which is what the Large Hadron Collider is. And the theoretical physicists sit in classrooms all day with blackboards drawing particles and stuff. We don't understand what matter is made of. Like, they can't agree on what the basic particles that compose us and the rest of the universe are. Is anybody on Reddit? Nobody else is on Reddit. I ordered a snoo last night, or I ordered a snoo recently, the little Reddit mascot, the little eyes and the thing on his head. And it came last night, and when you look on the panel on the back, it says contents dark matter. Because most of the universe is made of dark matter. We don't understand the universe that we're in. So he's talking about saturating the local space-time continuum. We don't actually understand what that really is composed of. Is it string theory? Is it supersymmetry? Nobody seems to know. And in fact, the Large Hadron Collider is coming back online next month at twice the energy. And I think they're hoping to find gluinos. They found the Higgs boson, right? They're hoping to find gluinos next. I don't even know what that means, but that's what they're going to try and find. So let me give you your starter. So these smart people say that AI is a bad thing, and it could lead to the end of humanity as a species. So you've all just said that it's a good thing, and it could be, you're a bit worried about some aspect of it, but in general it could bring us all together and be a solution to things. Hawking and Musk saying you're wrong. Say if AI gets out of control, we're all screwed, and we won't be here in 2045. I presume you watched The Matrix, right? Maybe we'll be living like in a constructed reality. Maybe we're living in a constructed holographic reality at the moment. The robots took over already, nobody told us. They didn't send us the email. So what do you think? Do you agree with them? Open question.
I guess I would agree with them a bit because I don't think we can all come together and like work together to like achieve, I guess, to survive the changes that we might have to deal with in the future. Because us as a species, I guess, individually, we're super selfish sometimes. So I don't think that's possible. But sometimes people do come together to achieve certain things. So I'm.
And you've talked about AI in the course already, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, somebody else, what do you think?
Well, I see two major sides to this. I see an energy resources side to it, and then I see more of a social search for meaning side to it. So on the one hand, I see human beings as well as other biological organisms as in a constant struggle to survive, to outcompete one another for resources, and at least with humans, we don't seem to have any sense of moderation, which is why you have these plutocrats, these billionaires out there amassing wealth but not necessarily sharing it, and never necessarily being satisfied with what they have. There's always
the 1% of the 1%.
Essentially, yeah, and they're still trying to increase their means, right? So there's no sense of moderation. Now, if we suddenly had, let's say, humans and robots, and the robots are on one side of the singularity and humans are on the other, those robots don't come from nowhere. They need resources to be built to survive, and so will we be at a point where one part of the side of the singularity does not relate, does not want to cooperate with the other? Well, the robots will obviously be able to outcompete us very, very quickly. So will we need to, does the Earth have the resources to actually support us? Absolutely not. We're already running into problems as it is. Now, on the other hand, there's the social side. And I think, let's imagine a situation where we have technology doing a lot of things for us. So now humans can go out and enjoy their lives, do things that they've always wanted to do. Maybe we found a way to upload our consciousness to a hard drive and we can live forever, essentially, in one body or another. What does that do to the world? I mean, is there any desire to create a company, to cooperate, to create a product that improves the world more? Will our infrastructure completely collapse at that point because everybody just wants to go out and climb a mountain or eat all the time or do whatever? So will that be the point where we actually figure out what it means to be alive, what gives us purpose? Because we've lost that purpose? I don't know.
So you're suggesting that being physically present in the universe, surrounded by made of matter, surrounded by matter, competing for limited resources, has given life meaning up until this point? Because it's kind of been about building things, competing and making something, right? And you could look at it from a biological perspective in terms of the selfish gene, right? Kind of competing to have your genes spread through the gene pool. And you're saying if that goes away, what are we for?
Exactly. If we become immortal, then what happens to the will to survive that drives our progress?
That's a tough question. Any more thoughts on the AI thing? Can Stephen Hawking be wrong? Is it possible?
I think it's entirely possible. I mean, I'm not sure because one person is very smart at one thing, we should trust them on absolutely everything they say. I mean, Steve Jobs was an absolute marketing genius, but he also had a diet which caused him massive pancreatic problems. And instead of getting treated for his disease, he focused on holistic treatments, which very likely seemed to have killed him. So I'm not sure that just because Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk, much smarter people than I am, say something will happen, we should all agree, yeah, humanity's doomed. Because, I mean, people have been, and smart people have been claiming the end of humanity or situations like this for a long time, saying, oh, the good old days, or oh, the future is
Apparently
gone.
there's an Assyrian tablet that has that inscribed on it.
Really?
The society is falling apart, young people won't obey their parents, and everyone is writing a book, and it was like 3000 BC.
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, people have been predicting that, oh, humanity's over and the future is too far gone and it's not, because when people look back on their past, they look back with rose-tinted glasses and they see, oh, the good old days. I mean, the good old days were World War II. How was that a good old time, right? So I seriously feel like humans are really good at adapting, and as the new generation comes, sure, I may not agree with what my children or their children do, but I think humanity will continue to survive in one way or the other, and will adapt as we always have.
Okay. Any comments from this side of the room on hawking and AI? Waiting for the next question. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next question then. So here you are. You get a job in, say, the U of A in a few years, and you're in this. Let's say you're kind of 2020, 2025. You're working in this field that's kind of complicated, and your colleague tells you that he's bought the latest new thing from Apple, like Siri 7, which is running externally, and it kind of reviews new information for him and gives him a summary about once a week. It's also writing some of his manuscripts for him, and his productivity is phenomenal. I actually got voice processing software for the first time this month, and I've been writing manuscripts by speaking rather than typing, which is quite an interesting experience. But this thing's actually writing the stuff for him, or putting the first draft together. And he also tells you, kind of over coffee quietly, that the thing on the hard drive is suggesting new directions for his research and giving him some career advice. So, you're going to buy it as well?
So I like this question because at first when I looked at it, I was like, no, I wouldn't. But then I thought about it, and I think the reason I was hesitant at first is because it's something that's not yet here. But when we think about other technologies that have now become really pervasive, just like using Facebook, maybe it was an idea that people were like, I would never post all my personal information and blah, 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 right? And then people buy into the idea because it becomes such a widespread technology. So if this was something that, like Facebook isn't the best example, but if it's something that has an advantage or has an edge that's being widely used as with many different people in the field, and you're the odd one out not using it, then you're all of a sudden at a disadvantage and you have to evolve and keep up with the times. So that's like people who don't own a cell phone are in a minority now. So on one hand, I mean, it poses an ethical issue when you start feeling like you're having less kind of personal autonomy in your decision making and in your productivity, and you can't take as much credit for the work that you're doing, but at the same time, we all use laptops, we all use emails, we all use phones to get our work done to be more productive already.
Well, we used to know where things were in the physical world, and now we have GPS or the Maps app on your phone, right?
Yeah.
We outsourced that thinking. So maybe this is reasonable too.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this is kind of something that's not so far-fetched, in that we have a lot of technologies that reflect similar ideas already. So,
any other thoughts? Would you follow suit?
I'm okay until the very last part. I'm totally fine with having a parallel personality that writes manuscripts for me, and that will boost my productivity. And we somehow do a little bit of that, even in the technology we use currently. But eventually, that parallel personality giving us career advice and suggesting new research directions is like a leap of faith. And I have to be able to trust that personality to make the correct decision.
And it's only suggesting, right? It's not telling.
Well,
just saying, you might have thought of it.
Once they suggest it, there's a good chance I might take it, because that's like, we have to build a trusting relationships with our computers. So it's I think it's slightly a new way of thinking, and definitely in terms of looking at it from the public's perspective, if having that parallel personality is going to increase our productivity in research and it's going to make our research more efficient, then yeah, that's fantastic. But then what is the extent where we would stop and say, no, we need to use our own autonomy and we need to make our own decisions rather than accepting suggestions or advices from...
In fact, you could expand the scenario. The bit after this is to say that The thing on the hard drive says, I would like to be first author, thanks. And you can be second author. Because I did all the writing. It was my idea in the first place. I wrote the first draft, you added a couple of words. Why is your name even on it? You know?
Yeah, so I just don't know the limits. It's
Got another comment there. Because it doesn't have to be a research paper, it could be a term paper, it could be your midterm, right?
I mean, I was just going to say, we already get suggestions from like music selection, you know, like whatever music app you use, it's like, oh, this is suggested according to what your likes are. So I was just going to say it might be highly biased or skewed in the sense that the AI might be searching for research topics that are beneficiary to its development. So sometimes it could be like, I'm just going to suggest this so that I can be the primary author. Or like, you know, I can bring other primary authors with me kind of thing. So it might be like biased in a sense that it's going to...
Well, it's kind of coming back to the AI thing where you're talking about the thing on the hard drive having a different motivation than we do.
Exactly. So I think it would just be biased in a sense to develop its own technological advancement.
Okay.
So it also makes you think about, you know, advice that you get from other humans, because you would have a question, can I rely on this, and what is, you know, the motives behind it? But then when you think about your life before, you know, you were getting, you know, advice from people before, sometimes good, sometimes flawed, and perhaps there'll come a time where it's clear that this is less flawed than what you had before, you know? And
I know a friend of mine says that your life is a posy of flowers picked from other men's bouquets, right? Like you take a flower from everybody you meet and you put it together at the end of the day. And I mean, no man is an island, or no woman is an island, so you're actually getting advice like this from everywhere anyway, so you're the sum of your experiences. Yes.
I have one more comment on that, because just to begin with, when we think about parallel personalities, hard drives, computers, there's always a human behind designing those things and writing the codes and just developing the softwares and everything like that. So definitely there will be a bias, and we can see that even in technology that we use, that because a specific portion of the population is developing these devices, they're not really meant to be used for other subset of the population. For example, just looking at our keyboards, it's recently that we've developed other different types of writing rather than just the English, Latin alphabet. So we see bias in technology, definitely, and this parallel personality would be developed by someone who has their own code of ethics, their own biases, so we're gonna be following that regardless. So it's kind of...
Yeah, I'd pointed a couple of additional things there. We talked about this running on an external hard drive. This could be a tiny external hard drive behind your ear, right? So it could be attached to your body. And you maybe, if it was hooked into your auditory cortex, you'd probably be able to hear it. The other thing is that people who develop things like this don't necessarily see where they're going to go. Like the person who developed the internet didn't say, hey, they're going to do this because I want to make cyberbullying more easy. So bad things will happen, and things get out into the environment, and shit happens essentially, right? And you take an invention that's used for a good thing, and it turns out used for a bad purpose. The other point I'd say is, has anybody seen the movie Her? Right. Where this guy, Joaquin Phoenix, right? He installs a new operating system on his computer, and it comes with a kind of a Siri thing, right? And it runs on his phone as well. And he basically falls in love with this personality. And what looks like a new operating system at the end of the day actually changes his entire life. And in fact, they have a kind of singularity thing in that as well. So let me move on to the next one. This is a hard one. So, and are we good to run slightly past 3 o'clock? Is that okay?
3:20.
3:20, all right, good. So, your partner is diagnosed with something very nasty. And I see this quite a bit in my practice as a surgeon. It's a rapidly advancing incurable disease, and they quickly pass away. And you're devastated, of course, because your partner is gone. After the funeral, you get a phone call from this kind of scientist you've never heard from before who says, unknown to you, your partner had arranged for a brain backup. And it's been done, she'd kind of gone, he or she had gone to this thing every month. And it's been running for the last year. And if you want, they can bring your partner back. They can basically upload them or download them into a new body. Or they can just, save the hard drive space and just delete your partner. What would you do? Got your hand up already.
Can I turn down the offer? Yes.
Oh, that's cold.
Because it's kind of weird because my partner's already dead. I don't know. It's weird.
You're like moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on down the road.
How do you deal with that? Because you've gone through the funeral, and then one day you just get like the call saying we can pretty much give you your wife back, kind of, and then you're just like, what? Do I accept that? It's not gonna be. I guess it is gonna be the same person because they have her memories and like the personality and everything, but you're always gonna have that in the back of your mind that this is not the same person. So you might not interact with that person just like you would interact with your wife. So I don't know if you would be able to, like, how you're going to be able to deal with that, because you're always going to have it there. So I would turn it down. I would turn it down.
Delete.
I suppose I would respond to that by asking, what is death? What does it mean to be dead? Because at this point in medical technology, we can keep somebody on life support at the end of their life, and we're running into problems now where nobody can agree on what it means to actually be dead clinically, emotionally. There are so many different definitions. So in a time when you have brain backups, when you realize cognitively that your entire consciousness is on a hard drive, does that change the definition of death again? Is that person really dead? Do you attach as much significance to their body? And what are the people around you doing? I wouldn't really think twice about it if this sort of thing is commonplace. Well, the person's body doesn't work anymore, but we can just upload them into a new chassis, if you will. So if a lot of people are doing that, I probably wouldn't even blink, to be perfectly honest.
So
I don't even know if I would grieve.
Okay, we've got one hand up here and then somebody else there. Yeah.
If this were me, I think my first question would be, why did my partner arrange to have this brain backup in the first place? Because that could then sway my decision. Because if this person had some specific intention in getting their brain backed up, as in they intended that I download their personality into a new body, then I would feel compelled to honor their wishes. But if it was for some other reason, just to have the memories saved and there was some other use for it rather than bringing them back to life, let's say, I don't know, that's kind of my first reaction to this would be why did they do that in the first place? And then my second thought with this is I feel like I would be thrown into existential crisis as well, just thinking about the idea of if personality represents who a person is, because to me personality is an aspect of a person, but is a superficial aspect, because you get into a debate about, depending on personal belief, of is that representative of one's soul and their being and who they are as a person, and I don't know, then you can alternatively have the argument that personality is enough and their body is what's superficial. And then, you can see where I'm going with this. It's very disturbing existentially to try and think about.
Do you even need the body, you're essentially saying?
Yeah, so I guess I thought of it in a different way rather than just how it would affect me as a person, but how would it affect society as a whole if people could, in effect, never die, right? Then would we have some kind of top-heavy atmosphere where, somebody who's already a brilliant scientist, already a brilliant whatever, would just keep on living one body after another, and at some point this would shut out the new growing talent, right? Because there's still going to be a limited amount of spots at the top. So if somebody who's already a proven successful individual just keeps on coming back, I think that would be really detrimental to society as a whole, because then nobody at the bottom will ever get a chance to move up unless they're directly related or have some kind of unbelievably exceptional talent to outweigh the people at the top. So I guess I think it'd be detrimental, perhaps there'd be an existential crisis,
Like
but I
get
think
rid of the old people and let the young people come through.
well, I think you have to have recycling because otherwise, well, I mean, look at it in the situation that a lot of older people have the same mindset that they had when they were growing up of how society should function. That's why the 50s had mainly men in everywhere, and that's the way it should be according to that mentality. And only now is that changing more and more gradually. So I think if people can just live forever, no matter how smart they are, their worldviews would be detrimental to societal progress. I really do.
Okay. Actually, we are looking at these questions. The first thing I came up with was what kind of new body.
Yeah,
is,
like what's
right?
the practical thing? What does that look like?
Yeah.
Like
what
is it
kind,
some
what kind of body
cardboard
look
cutout
like?
thing, or is it an actual
Yeah,
body?
I think if the new body is actually looks the same as my partner's, I will probably accept that.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Would that not be like super creepy? I mean, because bear in mind, when you strip it all away, we are animals, right?
Okay.
We kind of touch each other, we smell each other, we look at each other, right? And then this person who had a body, who you knew very well because we were partnered, they died. Then this other body is in its place. Is it the same? Is it like, are they the same proportions? Do they have all the same parts? Or like, are they sort of some strange robotic clone thing? And what does it actually mean? I mean, am I going to get my partner back the way that in my case she was before she died? Or is it going to be some weird kind of 50% simulacrum? What do you think? So you'd say yes, you bring your partner back.
Yeah, yes, I would like that way.
But what would you want in terms of a body? Yeah. Would you want an upgrade? Would you want your partner to be bigger or smaller in some departments, or smarter, or whatever, right?
Yeah, and now in Japan we have the humanoids.
Yeah.
Looks very
Like you might as well take the chance while you're getting a new model
think,
anyway. You might as well get a better car.
I was just going to
Okay.
add that how it might relate to the concept of human species ending. Like that might mean that we'll just have personalities floating around at some point, and then
like
if you can replace your partner that has died.
What if you can actually upload your partner to a computer and have a conversation with your partner about what sort of body they want?
What's your what? Sorry.
About what sort of body they want. What are you in a mood for now you're back from the dead? Oh, I want to come back as a horse.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it just seems like a very in denial and deceiving yourself kind of concept. Like, because I think the whole concept of being a human, and then like when you have a purpose, is because you're going to cease existing at some point. So you're like, okay, I'll have a career, I'll have a few kids, or whatever it is, right? Before I die, is what you say.
I better get on with it before I'm not here
It's kind of
anymore.
like in denial. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But then it also brings to question the whole ending human species, because we might as well have a bunch of personalities that look like humans, but they're actually AI. And
Okay,
then,
another comment there, and we've got another one there. It's a good one.
Sorry, this is a really quick one, and it's kind of building off Ankur's point. Mostly, I just thought about if this were to happen, if we ended up having a world full of personalities, and just like that was the evolution of our species or whatever. Ethically, I see a big problem with that on kind of a global scale, because this idea is inherently unequal or unequitable, because basically you're marginalizing and oppressing people who can't afford to have brain backups or don't have access to that technology in the first place, which then means you have a world or a society, if it progressed far enough, where you have a bunch of personalities, but they're a disproportionate representation of people who could afford to have their brain backed up in the first place.
And we're talking about access to technology that might make you immortal at a time in history when not everybody on the planet has access to clean water.
Exactly.
And food and antibiotics.
Exactly, and that's totally problematic if you ask me. So I think then that poses, whoever might be considering this is then put in a position where they have to make a decision that not only affects them, but also other people who may never have the opportunity for the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that today, if you think about that today, it will sound like a kind of strange thing to have someone that is gone to come back. But if we think when we'll reach the singularity, so we will have to deal with machines that are theoretically able to live life forever, replicate forever. So as humans, we have some limits. I mean, we born, then we have 20, 30, 40 years to learn, to have experience. We can learn even when we are 70, 60, 80, and then we die, and then another human will born, and so if we want to survive to these machines that have less limits than us, this can be a kind of weapon that we can use to compete with them, because we can live forever and learn forever, so we can stay on the same level with them. This is a thing that we cannot do as a single human if we will die one day for a disease or for the age or for everything. So I think that maybe in the future, if we will have to deal with this kind of immortal machines, this can be something that we can use to survive to them.
Like if I'm reading this scenario, I'd like to go back and do a philosophy major. I think that's going to be useful in the future.
Yeah.
Able to handle some of this stuff. For anybody who's seen the film Her, there's a really uncomfortable scene in the film. So the guy falls in love with this, I think her name is Samantha, right? Falls in love with Samantha, this AI personality, and they decide they want to have sex. And there is a lady who offers her services to act as a sexual surrogate. So he puts a little earbud in this lady's ear, and they start kind of having sex, and then it all just falls apart because it's just so weird. And as a viewer, it's so weird and uncomfortable even watching this happening. So that's not a consciousness going into a different body. That's somebody's actual body being kind of used by a different consciousness, and it's very awkward and difficult as a human person to watch that and go, ooh, that's not nice. So it's weird. The other thing is, put your hand up if in this room you have a will. 2 people, no, 3, right. I don't have a will. So I get hit by a bus tonight, and nobody knows what I would have wanted to be done in the event of my death, or if I'm on a ventilator or whatever, right? Because to me the interesting part of the story is, how come your partner didn't say, hey, I've got a brain backup. If anything happens to me, this is what I want to have done. Or the company who's been doing this for your partner should actually be able to say, until we won't do your backup until you've decided what would happen to it in the event that you did die. It's kind of a bit irresponsible to have done this, because like you can see this scenario ending up in front of the courts because nobody quite knows what to do. You decide you're going to erase the hard drive, right? 0 or 7 passes of zeros. And then her boyfriend from the coffee shop phones up and says, well, if you don't want her, I want her. I want to bring her back. And then you say switch her off, and he says switch her on, and then, you know, it gets very awkward. Right. We've been talking about competing, and when we're talking about resources, and we're talking about the planet being a limited thing, there's about 7 billion of us coming up, right? So you're selected. I think there's one of our students who's kind of on a project a bit like this. You've been selected as one of the first 100 people to go to Mars. Would you actually go? And this was in the news this week.
Actually, I think I would go because curiosity, and I would love to go there and see what's on Mars. But definitely, I will not make a one-way trip to Mars. I would want a round trip. I want to come back. And also just considering how much the mission would cost, that is another thing I would definitely take into account before I make that decision. Although regardless, even if I don't choose to go, someone else would choose to go, and then the same amount of resources will be spent. But definitely, I think I would be interested in going and seeing what's there.
But only as long as they can bring you back?
Yeah, only as long as they bring me back, and also definitely I would go through the safety instructions like 100 times and the potential dangers that I could face.
But if it's a one-way mission, you're not interested?
No.
Okay.
I like Earth.
I would totally go.
Even if it's a one-way deal?
Yes. Well, we don't know what life could be really out there, because I don't know. I would go because it sounds cool. It sounds like a great opportunity, truthfully, to be one of the first settlers outside, Earth. you'll probably have like some kind of memorial in your name eventually somewhere down the road. They'll be like, these were the first 100 people that like settled in Mars and whatnot, you know. And my grandkids will probably be like, hey, that's my granddad's name right up there. So that would be pretty nice.
So you're a yes.
Yes.
Any other opinions?
I was just gonna say, like, I personally would, just because I have that adventure spirit and I've traveled quite a bit. But it might be the next evolutionary phase of humanity, if you come to think about it. If there is no more humanity, like the human species ceases to exist here, that might be the next Earth. Who knows? And they might even make it able to accommodate humans and suitable for us. Obviously, we wouldn't just be shipping ourselves there if there is an oxygen and availability of our common resources that allows us to exist. But that might be the next like evolutionary phase. So I'll be a part of the next evolutionary phase of
and
humans.
It's probably a 9-month trip one way, right? Lots of CO2 in the atmosphere, so not enough oxygen to breathe. A smaller planet than our planet, so the horizon's quite a bit closer actually. And you're further away from the sun, so the sun's actually smaller, it's not quite as bright. And this is just the inner solar system. We haven't talked about if you went to, you know, Uranus or Saturn or Jupiter or anything. Would you go? Who didn't speak yet?
Yes.
Just
so I can be known as a Martian.
Just to be known. But do you think, in fact, okay, so I want to get your opinion on this.
Yeah.
There is a company that's planning to do it in like 2025, and it's some private...
I would have to do a lot of background information about the company.
Billionaire who's funding this, right? Yeah. And they've been criticized because they've been told that it's ridiculously naive. Like they've been told, wait until next century, because it's just not going to work. They said probably, there was a report came out yesterday, I think, or the day before, that said that they would expect that if everybody gets there, that they would start dying after about day 60.
Under those conditions, I probably wouldn't go. But if we have the technology, if it advances far enough to safely land and kind of stay in Mars for a couple of years under normal living conditions, I think that would be a great experience just to travel the solar system. Just not necessarily going from like to be at Mars just so you can land on Mars. I would go for the journey, not the destination.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to add, I think if I had to make the decision, it would have to do with, you know, what the motivation was in going there. If it was because Earth had gotten to a point where we were out of resources and we were coming to like something that looked very apocalyptic, and it was, you know, the human race was at stake and we needed to just go somewhere else, then yeah, I would consider it. But until that stage, I don't think I'd be inclined to leave Earth. I think that part of this is like the half of me that's like a little bit optimistic and likes to feel that humans are special, but so far we have yet to find a place that's like Earth in the solar system, in our galaxy, right? And to me that has some sort of significance, and I feel like, again, this sounds like me being a total optimist, but I'd like to see us try and take care of Earth before we totally just abandon it.
Interesting. I would say, if you want to see a fantastic video, there is a video, I think, on Vimeo or YouTube I saw the last couple of weeks, and it shows you the point of view of a photon traveling from the sun out to Pluto, and it's at the speed of light. And you start off obviously seeing the sun in front of you, and as you get further away, the sun gets smaller. And there's a little clock in the top right-hand corner, and it tells you how many minutes it will be of traveling at light speed to get to the next planet. And it's just 5 minutes of nothing, 5 minutes of empty interstellar vacuum, well, not interstellar, empty interplanetary vacuum. And then Mercury Mercury goes past like this, little tiny dot on the screen, and then there's nothing again for another 10 minutes. And then Venus, and then Earth comes out. You're thinking, yay, Earth's this tiny little thing, straight past. Like the solar system is empty. There's pretty much nothing out there. As soon as you leave Earth, it's very, very lonely. I mean, I can't actually imagine being on a spaceship looking back at Earth and not being able to find it when you look out the window, because it's some little tiny point. It's very scary. So you should watch that. one of the reasons why I got interested in singularity in the first place was because of my interest in science fiction. And I recently read a series of books by a guy called Kim Stanley Robinson, who I think is a fantastic science fiction author. And he wrote a series of books about the colonization of Mars called Red Mars, Green Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. It's about 2,000 pages altogether, and it gives a very realistic account of what might happen if we sent people to Mars and the problems that you'd have to overcome. Not just actually the physical problems, but the political problems. What happens when you've got 1 million people living on Mars and 12 billion people living on Earth? What's the political tension between those two things? And in fact, he creates a scenario where essentially they create a kind of a new political culture in Mars, which gets rid of things like hierarchy and gets rid of things like property rights, and says, well, Mars belongs to everybody, not just to people who can afford it. So I think I'm getting increasingly interested in seeing what's going to happen with the colonization of the solar system. I'm not going to live long enough to see it. I mean, they want to take maybe 100 highly intelligent 30-year-olds who have no partners, no family, no kids, who are willing to go and die on Mars to get things started. And you might be one of them, I suppose. You're a volunteer. So this is our final question, and it's the kind of comes back to your existential piece, right? Which is, what is life for? What if this actually happens? And you can be any shape you like. You don't have to do the physical things demanded of the body. You can have a body that'll last for 10,000 years, it's never going to wear out, or you can switch to something else whenever you feel like it. What are you going to do with eternity?
Actually, I'm not sure if I would want to do that, because most of the things that I value maybe I value them because they come with hard work. Maybe we value, I don't know, even like achievements and degrees and PhDs and everything like that, because it comes with years of hard work, and not everyone could get that easily. And I won't have any motivation. And sometimes even if you talk to people who are very successful, they say they miss the time when they were struggling, because struggle is more enjoyable than sitting at the top, because there's nowhere to go from there. So this is not my utopia for me. And
so would you sign up for this mission? Would you sign up to be in that body?
No, I will not. No.
So you'd rather die than live forever?
I think I would rather die.
All right. We have one vote for death.
Well, I'm very optimistic. Death could be nice.
Maybe I'm being overly pessimistic when I say death. We have one vote for term limits, essentially. Oh, by the way, how long do you want your term to be?
That's a question, because like 10,000 years seems like forever, but I wouldn't mind 20 extra years so that I could see, I don't know.
But what if you could, let's say that you could be in a body that could get you to another galaxy? Because you just get in a ship that's going to take a long time to get there, right? And then you sleep for 1,000 years, and then you're 1,000 light years away if you're traveling at light speed. You get to see another galaxy. Hey, that's pretty good.
Well, I still have to consider if I'm going to be 1,500 years old, will I still be working? Will I still have that motivation to eat, sleep, and just go to school or do something with my life? If that is taken away from the 1,000 years, I would rather have my 85 years and be motivated.
Okay, one vote for term limits. What else are you going to do? It's a big question, right?
No longer need to eat, sleep, work, or reproduce. Yeah, that's a wonderful experience of what human really wants to have, right?
So
without this experience, I won't accept any of this.
Well, you're not banned from doing those things, but you just don't have to do them anymore. You don't have to work or eat or sleep if you don't want to, but you can certainly do those. We're not taking those away, right? We're just making them optional.
Okay, but still, I won't accept this for living so long.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what to do really in such a long time.
Yeah, like what am I going to do with all this time, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to spend really.
Okay.
Okay.
I would be a wanderer. I would just kind of either, well, there's two two possibilities. I would either wander the Earth for as long as I can until it all goes to shit, or I would send myself into the center of the galaxy, into the black hole.
And see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, it actually brings you back to some bigger questions about, are you going to be a scientist or are you going to be an artist? And can you be both, right? I mean, maybe there's something you would like to do with your life, like paint or write or learn how to play a musical instrument or sing or do a band that you've never got around to because you're so busy with the sciencey side of your life. And it turns out, you know, when you've been a scientist for 400 years, it's boring. I want to go and form a rock band instead and see what that's like for a bit. You know, it's like when people say, well, what would you have done if you hadn't chosen to be an astrophysicist? And you say, well, okay, I'll do astrophysics for about 400 years, and then I'll have a second career, and then a third career, and a fourth career, and see where we go, right? Then maybe that's very greedy, taking all that time just for yourself, but you're not using any resources, right? You're traveling around the galaxy because you're not, like, taking space. Why not?
I would do it if I didn't have to do like 10,000 years, maybe like 800 or 400 or 500. I really don't like that 10,000. It's just way too long.
Because that would be the year, when you see 12,015 then.
It's way too long. 800, at least because the world is probably going to change a lot. I'm not going to be able to handle that much change.
Hold on, this is way before the heat death of the sun. Like
I know, but like, I'm not talking about like the sun. I'm just talking about like people in general, or if people are even going to be around for that long, or if we are going to be on Earth for that long.
Like
or
10,000 years isn't that long a time. I mean, you're talking about, this is relatively recent geological history.
Yeah.
The planet's way older than 10,000 years.
Yeah, but should a human be living any more than 100? Is something I would question, really. 100, 110 is just the max.
I didn't get that memo. I mustn't have got that memo.
I don't think we should be living for like 10,000 years. This is way too long.
Any other comments? A couple more here.
I actually have kind of an interesting one that relates to memory and how we interpret it throughout our lives. So when you start out, okay, maybe you have some memories from the time that you're, 3 or 4 years old to the time you're 9 or 10, and everything seems quite vivid and closely spaced together because you don't have much life to remember. But by the time you're 40, 50, 60 years old, suddenly time seems like it's passing a lot more quickly because your perception of time has expanded a little bit more. You can't, I think there's a limit to how much you can remember. So if you were to live for 10,000 years without upgrading your capacity to remember things, I feel like you might have like a couple of moments that you remember, really, really significant moments, but maybe you'd have like 800-year periods of just nothing, insignificance. So for this to be workable, I think you'd have to change the structure of your brain. You'd have to upgrade the hard drive in a sense and adjust how you can actually store information that you achieve throughout those years.
Another point there.
So my main concern is about the second sentence. So the fact that we won't need to eat, sleep, work, or so I think that this will change. Can we enjoy food if we are not hungry? Can we enjoy resting if you are not, to sleep if you are not tired? Can we enjoy the vacation if there is no work? Can we enjoy, and I think also reproducing, the thing that we enjoy to reproduce is because it's a kind of natural thing. If we want to reproduce, our species will extinguish. So if we don't need this stuff, what we would do during this? It's okay for me to live 10,000 years or 100,000 of years, but now I will say I want to enjoy the same thing that I'm enjoying now for the other 100,000 of years. If I won't enjoy this stuff, what I will do? I will get bored. I cannot enjoy anything.
Without darkness, there is no light, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is true.
I would argue that we don't reproduce because it's good for the species. We reproduce because it's fun.
Yeah,
and it's fun because
it's good for the species. Yeah, exactly. This is right. This is the main thing that we have to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure you can make the argument that there's no darkness without, or there's no light without darkness when it's not saying that you can't eat. You know, people eat all the time even though they're not hungry.
Yeah.
You know, you can sit there and eat ice cream or chips or drink a Coke or whatnot when you're not hungry at all, and it's super fun to eat ice cream or chips or a Coke. And I mean, you don't have to work, but you can choose to work. People do it all the time. You know, for example, university summers are 4 months long. And sure, the first month or so is great. Oh, no more school. I just had all these exams that I hated, but I'm done. But eventually, by the third month or so, you start going, okay, I need to do something. And you can choose to work, right? This isn't saying that you aren't allowed to work. It's just saying if you choose not to, you don't have to. And I think that'd be great. You know, sometimes you just want to take a break.
Yeah. So it's after, it's 3:30,
yes.
right? So I'm very happy. Thank you for coming. Very happy with the discussion. Hope you enjoyed the flipped part of it. I'm very happy not to have a whole bunch of slides. Happy to keep the conversation going. Email me if you like. And thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, fantastic.
It was fun.